Hey guys, this is going to be another quick video. This time it's going to be about like those ridiculous charts that I've seen, or you've probably seen them too if you've been in like the personality type or like cognitive function or whatever, like blogosphere slash like internet community. You've seen these ridiculous charts of like IQ or like giftedness and their association with type. And in the last video, I was reading a part of the general description for the extroverted thinking type, and I came across a passage from the book in that same section, like in the beginning of the section, and it reads, "It is a fact of experience that all the basic psychological functions seldom or never have the same strength or grade of development in one and the same individual. As a rule, one or other function predominates in both strength and development." So I was like thinking about that, and then in conjunction with like all those stereotypes that you get when you first look into like the type community, and like all of the groupthink that you see, where you basically have these charts that are spread like memes across the internet, and people are online talking about them as if they're fact, without really looking anywhere below the surface at whether these things are fact or fiction. So like in particular, if you look, there's one I've seen all the, I mean, like if you Google like MBTI and IQ, this is something that comes up all the time. It looks like somebody made this like on Excel or something like that. You can see this like if you ever go on Quora, which, I mean, if you do, I feel bad for you, because you're reading about IQ on Quora, which is that's already a pretty horrible place to be. But if you look at this chart, this is probably like cited by people, and so they put ESFJ at the bottom, and then they put INTP at the top. It's like kind of funny to me from from a psych perspective, because I mean, clearly this was an INTP that made this, and if you look at the functions of an INTP, their inferior function or their inferiority complex is extroverted feeling. So if you follow like I guess people would say like classical Jungian psychology, or even like the newer stuff like John Beebe, they would say that someone that's INTP has an inferiority complex centered around the type of ESFJ. So someone that has dominant extroverted feeling with auxiliary introverted sensing, they have an inferiority complex about that, which is like, I just think it's kind of funny just now looking at the chart. I didn't even notice that until I started recording. But it literally looks like this was made by an INTP, number one. And then it's like there's like this hierarchy where you have like the INs at the top, and then the ENs, and then the ISs, and then the ESs, which I think it's kind of funny, because it's like, wouldn't, I mean, okay, for example, like INFPs are their dominant feeling types. So wouldn't somebody be like a dominant thinking type be more on the like the gifted scale? Or if say we're just talking about IQ, say like we have like an ESTJ or something like that, like why would an ESTJ be so far down their thinking types by comparison to like say INFP or INFJ, which if you like, say you take like any of like the typological schemas, say you look at like socionics, like somebody that swears by socionics would say that someone that's INFJ, like an introverted intuitive with auxiliary extroverted feeling, someone like that has a blind spot to extroverted thinking. So they're like insanely bad at extroverted thinking. Yet on this chart, which like I guess came out of nowhere, like I don't even know where the source is for this, you see that there's ESTJ is like second to last in terms of gifted slash normal. And I'm just saying it's like associated with IQ, because like that's where all the studies seem to hinge their results. So not saying that it is in reality, because I don't even know the source for this. So you just see this like all over the internet. And just to give you an example of like some of the ridiculous things that I found while reading about this stuff, and it's not like I spent a lot of time, so I don't want like any I don't want any INTPs on here who've spent like 15 years like reading all this literature to come at me and be like, well, you know, you haven't seen this study. It's like, I don't really give a shit. This is just something that I looked at in a couple minutes while it popped into my head. So I've got this study. It says the relationship of the Myers-Briggs type indicator to IQ level and the fluid and crystallized IQ discrepancy on the Kaufman Adolescent and Adult Intelligence Test, or CATE. So the people that did this research, they had some participants. They had about 1,300 participants, and they were aged from 14 to 94 years of age, and they were tested throughout the U.S. during the standardization of this CATE IQ test. And you gotta love that these guys are honest that do this type of work, the psychologists that actually took their time to carry this out. But the funny thing to me was that they didn't find that anything besides the difference between sensing and intuition actually had an effect on IQ. So, and that's not saying there actually is one, that's just what they found doing statistics. So, from the paper it says the intuition groups, the IN and the EN, did not differ significantly from each other, and neither did the sensing groups. So, I'm not quoting everything from the study, but the intuition groups and the sensing groups differed. But if you took into account anything besides that, so like thinking and feeling did not have a difference at all. It was, so they're just saying from what they found, it's just intuition and sensing that make a difference, which I think is it's kind of funny. But they also have a bunch of other like more ridiculous, I keep using the word ridiculous, but it's like it's more than ridiculous, because it almost goes, it gets to like there's like racist results almost in this study. I'll get to that in a second. So here's another part I thought was funny. Like, we'll get to the racist part in a second, but what I thought was funny was this section where it says, the significant main effect for age in the judging perceiving analysis is a result of an apparent age trend. People tend to become more judging and less perceiving with increasing age. Individuals aged 14 to 19 rely more on perceiving than judging. They deal with the outer world more by sensing or intuition rather than by thinking or feeling. In contrast, individuals aged 30 and above rely more on judging than perceiving. Which I think is funny, because it's like, okay, wait, your type, like, let's say I'm INTP at age 15, then like I'm still going to be INTP at age 50. So it's like they interpreted the results really weird. Or, I mean, they could have interpreted the results fine, the results of their statistics fine. It's just the assumptions, the assumption that you can actually use the Myers-Briggs to get an accurate determination of whether somebody's IQ is going to be higher or lower is like, it's almost a ridiculous question to be asking in the first place, especially if you're going to come out with the result that people's type changes as they get older, and people tend to become more judging and less perceiving with increasing age. It's like, all right, well, say I'm ESTP at age 15, so you're telling me that as I get older I become ESTJ. So I go from being an extroverted sensing type to an extroverted thinking type, basically just because I got older. Like, that's pretty ridiculous. Another part that I thought was pretty great was that it said the significant sex and race main effects found in this study reflect the fact that males and blacks, at least they capitalize blacks, right? Blacks both have a decided preference for thinking rather than feeling. Males, more so than females, base their judgments on impersonal analysis and logic instead of on personal values. So do blacks relative to whites. Blacks and whites are capitalized, at least. So it says the preference of thinking over feeling for males is a well-documented finding. Okay, so these MBTI psychologists they've had a couple studies, I guess. The thinking greater than feeling result for blacks is less well established. Okay, but I mean, they're still drawing this conclusion anyway based on their statistics. So that's one thing. However, the same finding was also evidenced in a study of the MBTI in 134 black high school students from North Carolina enrolled in 5 science classes. So I just think it's funny that they're not saying, okay, this is a kind of a stupid question to be asking in the first place. They don't say that. They just say, okay, well, all right, yeah, we expected this result because racism, or because, I mean, okay, well, it's a farcical way of putting it, but like, we expected this because we'd expect there to be these types of differences based on whites and blacks, not even taking into account like the the difference in how much like how much education somebody's had, or their income, or other races in the United States, since they said that they tested people throughout the United States. So it's like you just get like a bunch of you get a bunch of like weird stuff from these types of studies. All right, and I think I'm going to end it there. I'm just going to like I'll put the ball in your guys' court, whoever's listening. If there is anybody listening to a video 10 minutes in on their personality type and IQ, especially after I've said it's ridiculous, because I'll bet you like most of the people were trying to click it to try and like to try and validate themselves and be like, well, I'm INTJ or I'm INTP, so therefore I have the highest IQ, and they wanted some validation from someone saying that that's the truth, probably. I don't know, but like maybe there are some people that aren't crazy and have sat through this for 11 minutes, and you guys actually have some like thoughtful opinion to put on this. So yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling and end the video, but let's see what you guys think in the comments.